Well, hello, Canadian Campaholic here, coming to you from my basement with a video log update. It is Sunday, March 22nd, and I just wanted to touch base with my viewers just to let you know that there's probably not going to be much on the channel for the foreseeable future. Of course, as you can predict, this is a result of the widespread of the coronavirus COVID-19. Very scary situation, I think, for everybody around the globe, and having a definitive impact on the camping season for 2020. Here in Canada and in Ontario, the provincial parks had been open for camper use only. They had closed down the visitor centers, and the government had stated they were going to review the situation on April 1st. But I guess it turns out that a lot of people were going to the day use areas in our provincial parks, or our version of state parks for my U.S. viewers. Too many people too close together, and the government was forced to shut things down. Now, we had tried to get a very early season camping trip in for next weekend. That had been the plan, but now they've completely shut everything down until the end of April. And I support the decision, and I respect the decision. But in a world that has become so scary, camping, I definitely think, would have been a great way to socially distance and for my family and I to get away and try and take our mind off of things. But like I said, I respect their decision as to why they did it. I do fear that this is going to drag on for a fairly long period of time, and is going to wipe out a lot of our camping season, which, when you figure how long the winter is and how little time we get, it's a shame. But there's certainly more at stake here than the ability to go camping. People are dying. There's no doubt about that. The numbers show that every day, and it's, my heart goes out to anybody who is either sick with the virus or knows someone who's sick, and especially if you know someone who has died. I mean, that's very tragic. For me personally, the situation could potentially get a lot worse because my employer has been hit very hard by the current circumstances and has already furloughed all of my counterparts in the United States, and I suspect that I and my Canadian colleagues are not too far behind that, and that's going to be bad. That is going to be bad. We could potentially lose the trailer, could potentially lose the truck. I'm going to have to pull the paperwork. I think, if I remember correctly, I set up payment protection plans on both, which, if I recall correctly, in the event of being unemployed or laid off, I think that's going to cover those payments. But in times like this, camping, trucks, trailers, let's be honest, those are not the most critical things. I've got 2 kids. My wife is pregnant with our 3rd child. That baby's due in July. Their health and safety is more important. So food and shelter, I mean, that's really what it boils down to. But it really sucks that we've got to this point. And I saw an article today that was posted in the LA Times, and I really hope this guy is right. It's I have the article in front of me. It's a Nobel laureate who made some incredible predictions about how the virus would pan out in China. A guy called Michael Levitt. He's a Stanford biophysicist, and he started analyzing the number of COVID-19 cases worldwide back in January. And this guy predicted that China would get through the worst of the outbreak long before many others had. I'm just going to sideline here for a quick second. I think one of the frustrations I have with this situation is the amount of fear and panic that is being spread. I think it's very important that we as a human species take the virus very seriously, but I think that there's undue panic and undue stress. I agree there should be some social distancing, but I think the fact that we're trying to shut everything down and it's, causing honest, hardworking folks like myself to potentially lose their livelihood is a little ridiculous. I'm just going to say that. And I used to work in the news media. I was a news anchor for a series of radio stations. I worked in television as well. And I remember even back September 11th, 2001, a horrific event, lots of innocent lives lost. But the world economy almost crumbled, and the world almost came to a standstill. And even then, I thought it was very strange that this horrendous event, which was very tragic, and we should mourn it, should cause the whole globe to shut down. It just seemed odd. And I still say to this day that a lot of that was due to the media. The media blew it out of proportion. They rammed it down our throats. It was all we ever heard about, read about, saw everywhere, and it was very depressing. And I think the same is happening with this virus. The media are just going berserk with it, and I hear pundits like Wolf Blitzer saying, "Oh, scary, scary." I'm sorry, when I was being trained to be a journalist, I was taught you don't give an opinion. You don't say shit like that. You know, if you have a story you want to share with us that's going to drive home a point, so be it. But you shouldn't be saying this is scary. That's just going to frighten people more than they need to be. And I think that's my frustration, is that this is the economic and social impacts of this are going to be vast. But anyway, what I want to say about the article here, which I think is interesting, is that he, like I said, predicted that China would get through the worst of this outbreak long before everybody else did. And he's now predicting a similar outcome for the U.S. and the rest of the world. And I'm no expert. I'm not an epidemiologist, as my wife pointed out today when I said I was going to do this video. But, you know, epidemiologists right now, they're warning about months or years of, you know, massive social disruption, millions of deaths. And Levitt, this Nobel laureate, is saying that the data doesn't support that. It just doesn't back it up. He said we need to control the panic. And if we can do that, we're actually going to be fine. So he did a bunch of data extrapolations, and I won't bore you with the details. But he was looking at the rate in which the deaths and the cases were increasing. And he predicted that the COVID-19 cases in China would peak at around 80,000 cases and about 3,250 deaths. Well, as of March 16th, which is around the time he predicted this, they had reached 80,298 cases and 3,245 deaths. I mean, that's almost right on the money. And he pointed out this is in a nation of almost 1.4 billion people, where 10 million people die every year. 10 million. So to lose 3,000 is awful, it's heart-wrenching, it's tragic, but there's a proportion there. So he's basically saying that based on his extrapolations, he realizes the numbers are noisy, as he calls it. He realizes that the data is a bit messy, but he stands by his theory, and he thinks there's signs of recovery. He still says, you know, we've got to respect the government's wishes for social distancing. We've got to self-quarantine if we suspect we may have the illness, the disease. But he's just painting a more positive outlook, and I really hope he's right. Something else that he said in here that stood out to me, he says it's not the time to go out drinking with your buddies, but it's certainly something we can get through. He said he's just really worried that the health measures that are in place right now, they're shutting down huge swaths of the economy and could cause their own health collapse, because lost jobs leads to poverty, it leads to hopelessness, and suicide rates are going to go up. So he's really hoping that we can get through this a little faster than a lot of people are predicting. And I really hope he's correct. I really hope that I don't get laid off. I really hope that I don't have to lose my truck and trailer that I've worked so hard for, and you know, is the backbone of of something I'm so passionate about. But you know, my wife and I joked that if it does come to that and we lose everything, eventually we'll get back on our feet. We'll be able to work again when things get better in the months ahead, and we'll just buy a tent. In fact, I think we have a tent back here that we could probably use. But anyway, I'm rambling now, so I guess I will sum this up by saying there's not going to be a lot of activity on the channel, at least not until we can get the camping season going. I really hope for all of my subscribers and fellow campaholics that we are able to salvage some of the season. But for now, let's focus on what is more important, which is staying safe, you know, looking after our loved ones and riding this out. And let's hope that this gentleman, Mr. Levitt, is correct, and we'll pull through this sooner rather than later. So that's all for now. All the best. We'll talk to you later.